Hope everyone's prepared for Camelot, so Brony of G&A Reviews here with a servant spotlight for your favorite son bro, Ozymandias. We'll be examining his stats and skills, as well as going over pointers on how to utilize him effectively, and an overall grade comparing him to how he stacks up to the other 5-star servants. I also have the spotlights out for Nitocris and Saber Lancelot, so do check those out right after this, but for now, on to Ozymandias' stats. Ozymandias has a max HP of 12,830, tied with Drake for the lowest HP stat among all 5-star riders, and overall a really low HP stat for a 5-star. However, his max attack of 11,971 is the second highest among all rider servants in the game, and it's very high overall compared to the other 5-star servants. Taking a look at his skills, his first skill is Charisma rank B, which increases the attack of all allies for 3 turns, between 9 and 18% depending on level. His second skill is Imperial Privilege rank A, which gives him a 60% chance to increase his attack between 20 to 40% for 3 turns, a 60% chance to increase his defense between 20 to 40% for 3 turns, and an HP restore between 1,000 and 3,000, all depending on level. His final skill is Protection of the Sun God rank A, which increases the Noble Phantasm gauge of all allies by 20% and increases the buff rate of all allies for 1 turn between 20 to 40% depending on level. For passives, he has Magic Resistance rank B, which increases debuff resist by 17.5%, Riding rank A+, which increases quick card effectiveness by 11%, and Divinity rank B, which applies damage plus 175. As for his deck and Noble Phantasm, he has an Arts Buster deck with Quick Arts Buster Buster and a Buster Noble Phantasm. His Noble Phantasm is Ramsium Tantyrus, which deals significant damage to a single enemy with between a 600 and 1000% damage modifier, depending on level. It also inflicts Noble Phantasm Seal for 1 turn, and decreases their defense for 3 turns between 20 to 60%, depending on overcharge. Taking a closer look at his cards, we see that his Quick card hits 5 times, his Arts hits 3 times, his Buster hits once, and his Extra attack hits 5 times. He has a Noble Phantasm gain rate of 0.59% and a star rate of 9%. He has strong Noble Phantasm gain due to high hit counts and above average star generating due to the 5-hit Quick card and Extra. For comparison, his Noble Phantasm gain is slightly better than the non-buff Drakes, and they have comparable star generating. The king is here. Ozymandias is a high-powered rider that not only packs a serious punch, but also brings out the best in his allies through his high utility skill set. First off, he's packing a Charisma, which unfortunately is only rank B, making it the same as Arturia's, but a party buff is a party buff, and while it may not be OP, being able to keep a consistent 18% buff on your whole party on a short cooldown is very solid. What is OP is his second skill, Imperial Privilege. This is not a new skill, but Imperial Privilege is arguably the best self-buff skill in the game because it not only gives a gigantic attack buff for 3 turns, but it also gives a big heal and a gigantic defensive buff as well for 3 turns, all with a very short 5-turn cooldown, making it both the perfect offensive and defensive skill. The only downside is that the buffs only have a 60% chance of activating, keeping the skill from being completely broken and OP. Until now, because what makes Ozzy the all-star that he is his third skill, Protection of the Sun God, which not only gives the entire party a 20% NP charge, but it also increases the party's success rate for all buffs by up to 40%. This effectively erases the only downside of Imperial Privilege and makes it so that it never misses. And this is a team-wide buff. That means that most skills that rely on RNG, like Nero's Imperial Privilege or Hans's Noble Phantasm, automatically succeed. It also makes farming easier since your entire team will be able to Noble Phantasm right away if they have Kaleidoscope after Ozzy uses this skill. The amount of utility that Ozzy can provide with this skill is unmatched, and he's the only servant in the game who can do this. However, because Imperial Privilege is the backbone of Ozzy's defense and offense, you're going to want to prioritize maxing that one first, followed by Protection of the Sun God for maximum utility, and then finally Charisma. Ozymandias' usefulness isn't just limited to his skills, but his Noble Phantasm as well. Being a single target buster, it does do a huge chunk of damage, especially when buffed with Imperial Privilege, but it also steals the enemy's Noble Phantasm and decreases their defense by up to 60% for 3 turns, making it incredibly useful for tougher fights. Ozzy is one of the best servants when it comes to being an all-rounder, as his skills give him both incredibly high damage and a low cooldown heal and defensive buff, and he can support with Charisma, Noble Phantasm Charge, and a buff to success rate for the whole team, while simultaneously playing a bit of control on the enemy with a Noble Phantasm Seal and a strong defense debuff. Keep in mind that Ozymandias can spam his Noble Phantasm relatively easily because his NP gain is so high and because he has a Noble Phantasm Charge skill, so stacking those defensive debuffs and continuously sealing the enemy Noble Phantasm isn't too difficult to pull off. Naturally, because he's so high utility, he can fit into pretty much any team as well, so it's very difficult to find flaws with Ozzy, as he doesn't have any glaring weaknesses that aren't easily compensated for. However, what does prevent him from entering the realm of game-breakingly broken is the slightly longer cooldown on Protection from the Sun God, which effectively lengthens the cooldown on Imperial Privilege, because you won't ever want to activate Imperial Privilege while Protection from the Sun God is not active. Also, his lack of hard defense, i.e. no guts, no invincibility, or no evade, make him susceptible to being one-shotted by an enemy Noble Phantasm because of his low HP, although the defense buff from Imperial Privilege is massive and goes a long way toward preventing that. As I mentioned, Ozymandias is a good fit for practically any team, but specifically he shines in offensive buster setups. So pair him with Gil, Saber Alter, Altera, Rama, Tesla, Nobu, Drake, Gawain, Bedivere, and similar servants. His deck, defensive debuffs, and charisma can drastically increase their damage output. You can also use him as your main attacker, in which case Waver, Hans, Nero Bride, Leonidas, Shakespeare, Shuten, and Nightingale are strong buffers for him. Mosh and Iris View can help him a lot defensively as well. And finally, remember to pair him with anyone that has RNG based skills, so Hans, Nero, Romulus, Caligula, Skahak. And I should also clarify something, in the Astolfo video, I did say Ozymandias' Protection from the Sun God worked on his 3rd skill, but that was my mistake, it does not. Protection from the Sun God won't work on skills or effects that recalculate their RNG over multiple turns, so do keep that in mind. Ozymandias' Bond Craft Essence is Ramesium. It buffs the Arts and Buster card effectiveness of all allies by 10%. Pretty good craft essence, and I do recommend it, but for more damage you'll want to go with Limited Zero, Black Grail or True Samadhi Flame, and Golden Sumo. Situationally, if you're facing only caster enemies, I recommend Origin Bullet. And if you want more of a support role, then 2030, Maiden Leading Chaldea, and any Noble Phantasm gain craft essence like Divine Banquet work well. And if you're feeling a little memey, Maiden Halloween can make you stupid tanky with Imperial Privilege. Overall, Ozymandias is the best example of an all-rounder servant in the game. He provides unmatched utility in the form of unique buffs and debuffs on enemies. He has a pretty broken skill set with a guaranteed Imperial Privilege that effectively lets him take nearly half damage and hit way above his weight class. And he can perform any role you need him to do, from support buffer to enemy debuffer to primary attacker, and he can do all of those at a relatively elite level, making him one of the most versatile servants in the game. He does have some snags, with a slightly longer cooldown for his most unique skill, and he lacks any hard defense like evade, guts, or invincibility. But those are minor downsides that are easily overshadowed by his incredible utility and power, so he gets a very kingly A+ from me. Well, those are my thoughts on Ozymandias. In my opinion, he is one of the top 10 servants in the game, even counting JP, but what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and let me know if you managed to roll him. And please do check out the other servant spotlights for Nidochris and Saberlot, linked both on screen and in the description below. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and consider subscribing if you really enjoyed the video. Join the party over at our Discord, chill with us on Twitch, and follow us on Twitter. And I'll see you all in the next servant spotlight. Soberoni out. Later.